All right, everybody. So, because we have classes canceled due to the pandemic, I am going to do a short ephemeral pool video for people's enjoyment. This is mostly for the herpetology class, but I will keep this public on my YouTube channel so that anybody who wants to can watch it. I do have a few videos from last year of this ephemeral wetland, where I was listening to the peepers and the grays. Not these grays, these are the invasive gray willows, which I'm going to be sampling from later, but I don't want to get too much on a tangent because I won't be able to stop, and this is supposed to be a fairly short video. So first, I have my muck boots on. I just bleached and cleaned these last week. I soaked them all the way with a 15% bleach. Hi! Sorry, somebody's calling hi to me. With a 15% bleach solution, and then for about 2 hours, and then I allowed them to sit in a sunny, hot car for a few days so that they could dry, and the UV light would destroy the rest of the bleach. So this is a dip in the, or a depression in the ground that is behind a local fire station. It floods with water. Something's moving in there. It floods with water every year. Wood frogs breed in here. I've heard peepers, American toads, gray tree frogs. I've even heard pickerel frogs on some occasions. Apparently spotted salamanders will also breed in here. The water level has finally gotten to where it needs to be. The other day, all of this, which is the shallow end, if you will, was completely dry, where I could walk through this with sneakers with relatively few problems. Now it's nice and flooded. The deep end is over there. This is where you're most likely to see the tadpoles later in the season. Generally right in here is where I find wood frog eggs. So we're going to go through. I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've done here in the past and kind of see what's going on. Now, the hylids, which are your string peepers and your gray tree frogs, lay their eggs singly. I know that Dr. Carricker doesn't like when people take organisms out of the wild or keep things in captivity. I have some agreement with where she's coming from, but that's not the point of this video. So I don't recommend people go through and take things. There are a few problems with doing that. I generally will only raise tadpoles in small batches for the purposes of outreach education that I do, so that school children can watch the development of some of these things. It's good to engage them, but you know, I'm being more careful now that I'm aware of some of the problems with it. So that's a different story. But if you want tree frog eggs, you generally have to catch the mating pairs because they don't lay their eggs in very large masses like the wood frogs and pickerel frogs and American toads do. Well, American toads lay their eggs in strings, not masses. By the way, I've caught mating pairs of American toads and I couldn't get them to lay eggs for me. So I released them after a few days. Interesting, they can go a long time without food and they kind of just hang out together for quite a while. So I'm just kind of wading through very gently. I don't really want to step on anything or startle things. Now when it's later in the day, a lot of these organisms will be calling and making a lot of noise without much regard for anybody being there. I'm really hoping to see some wood frog egg masses. So let's just kind of take a look through here. I will go to the area where I tend to see them right now, just to kind of see what's going on there. And I have an area by my house where the woods floods, and it's kind of the same situation where things breed in. But I will cleanse these boots before I go through that. That prevents any possible transmission of pathogens from one area to another. Very important thing to do. We're all talking about pathogens these days, but it's not just humans that we have to worry about getting pathogens and dying in large numbers. So right now I'm not seeing any egg masses. I'm going to pause the filming of this so that the video doesn't exceed the 10-minute limit. 1 sec. I hear a wood frog. He's over that way. I may head that way now. Young willow, almost certainly gray willow. Gray willows all through here. Doing a little crouching closer to the water surface just to kind of see what's in there. A couple of things that I wanted to quickly say. Some of these tussocks that you see here, especially towards that end where it's just tufts of grass, here and here, the male peepers really love to hide in the middle of those where they call from. So if you come here at night with a headlamp, you'll most likely find a male or two in each of these. Kind of once you get to them, they'll quiet down, but you can still see them, and they don't do much to try and escape because they're relying on their tiny size and relatively good camouflage. Obviously, if you handle them, they will start to move around. But that's generally where they're calling from. The grays seem to be calling from the same locations, but much later in the season. So how much do people want to bet that the wood frog eggs this year are kind of in that clump of willow stems and grasses that are growing over there? I'm getting closer to the source of the wood frog. I haven't seen the green frog that generally hangs out in here yet. Now this area is really thick with grass, and this dead grass will probably start growing algae on it, which is what tadpoles will feed on. It's also good shelter for the tadpoles. Also, you'll start to see caddisfly larvae that make cases out of chunks of grass around their bodies, kind of like bagworms. They're actually sharing a common ancestor with the Lepidoptera, which I can talk about in a different video. But it's really cool to see the caddisflies. You'll see the caddisfly larvae mostly at night. I can't imagine there wouldn't be caddisfly larvae in here right now. They're probably still early instar, but as the season progresses, you'll see a ton of caddisflies, as well as the grass stem boring moths of numerous larvae of numerous aquatic crambids. We're far from the shallow now. We've got an egg mass. All right, so this egg mass looks relatively fresh, and you can tell that for a few reasons. One, it's really compact. Let me see if I can get the lighting. Jesus Christ. All right, so you see the egg mass right there. That's almost certainly Lithobates sylvatica, or sylvaticus. The egg mass is fresh. You can tell because A, it hasn't expanded to its full size yet. Those embryos are really clustered together. The other way you can tell is that the white, which is the yolk, is still consuming about half of the egg's volume or surface area that you can see. What will happen over the course of just a few hours is the egg cells will start to divide and encapsulate that white. So the entire embryo will turn kind of a grayish, light brown color rather than half black, half white. So this is how you can tell that the egg mass was recently laid, probably within the past 12 hours, maybe even sooner. If you take a wood frog egg mass and you put it in water, you'll watch as over the course of a day or two, it swells as water's uptaken by that jelly. Remember that the female wood frog is only about this big, and the egg mass is huge. She can't fit that huge area in her body. She produces a small amount of the thick jello that will, not really jello, that will pick up the water as it's laid in the water. So that's how they get the small egg mass to expand into a large egg mass. I don't know if other wood frogs will lay their eggs right along here, or if they'll have another area. Even though they are communal layers, you'll sometimes find egg masses that are a little bit away from the rest of the group. I don't know if it's a bet hedging strategy or just a behavioral mutation or something like that, but we found what we came for. So thank you for joining me.